Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Hillel Fuld. Hillel has been named Israel top marketeer by Forbes and also the man transforming startup nation to scale-up nation. He's a tech journalist, startup marketeer, technology expert, and since October 7, he's been dedicating his time, energy, and network to speak up for Israel. His tweets have been seen by over 250 million people. Enjoy my conversation with Hillel Fuld. Hello and welcome to the new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today, I am absolutely delighted to speak with an extraordinary human being. You're going to hear about him. He is one of the top tech guy, the tech guy, according to Forbes in Israel, the guy who's transforming the startup nation into the scale-up nation. He's number 7, I think, in the list of the top 100 influencer in tech in the world. He's speaking all over the place. His resume, if you go on LinkedIn, is just unbelievable. There's over 80 entries on what he's been doing. And most importantly, he is a true mensch, somebody who's speaking up about what's going on in Israel since October 7th. So we're going to speak about tech, we're going to speak about AI, and we're going to speak about the reality of what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Hillel Fuld. Hillel, thank you so much to take the time to speak with me. I know you have a very busy agenda.
I appreciate the opportunity, and that was quite the introduction. Thank you.
I'm just reading a little bit of what I've learned about you. So let's start with your journey and what gets you to be the reference in the tech world.
So my journey is pretty straightforward. I'm from New York originally. I moved to Israel as a kid, and I always loved technology. Like well before it was cool to love technology. Everyone loves technology now, but I'm talking many, many, many years ago. And at my first job, I basically found myself just bored. And I said to myself, I love tech. I love writing. I got to do something about this. And so I just opened a web browser and started to write. Today, we call that a blog. Back then, that wasn't a thing. And it definitely wasn't a way to generate business, but it was a passion. And after that, entrepreneurs started to reach out to me and I would meet them. I'd offer help. And one thing led to another. And here I am.
Your resume reads every single major tech company in the world, every magazine. Is what? Is one thing leading to another? Or it's consulting? It's speaking? What happened?
I mean, you have to differentiate between clients that I'm actually advising on a regular basis and, publications which I'm a contributor and, Fortune 100s where I work with them on specific projects. It's not like, I'm speaking to every single one of those companies every single day. It's kind of different types of engagements.
Yeah. So thing that I was really impressed when I read the book Startup Nation, and I was thinking about what Tel Aviv was 100 years ago, and it was it was a swamp, and now it's the leader, one of the leader in the world. How can you explain that such a small country became the leader in tech and has been impacting so many fields from agriculture to medical to obviously the military? How could that be possible?
Yeah, so there's a ton of literature on that question, specifically, obviously, Startup Nation. There are a lot of elements here. Obviously, there's the culture, just kind of Israeli chutzpah, as we call it. There's the military that does play a significant role because, a lot of leading entrepreneurs in Israel come out of the 8200 unit, the intelligence unit, and the IDF. There's the government that very strongly encourages entrepreneurship, gives out grants to startups, the Innovation Authority. There's, I would say, a historical element of kind of always having to be in survivor mode. And here we are at home. And now we have this, this energy that we always use to survive. And now we're using it to change the world. So there's a lot of reasons. But even with all those reasons, it's still an absolute enigma how this country, forget its size. I mean, it's in the worst neighborhood on earth. I mean, the Middle East isn't exactly a friendly playground. And yet Israel, like you said, is dominating every sector of technology. Like you mentioned a couple, but it's pretty much across the board. And it's really, truly remarkable.
I had the opportunity to be one of the member of the Weizmann Foundation in Belgium. And I think there was 3 or 4 of the most used molecule out of 10, most used molecule in the world that were discovered there. Also, what's been fascinating to me is how all those discoveries have impacted the world. So what is it? Is it partnership? Is it how does all those discoveries manage to actually impact the entire world? How do you spread all this technology? Is it through partnership?
I mean, there's the normal channels of just sales and marketing, but
Yeah.
when you're inventing the cure for cancer or treatment that is cutting edge that no one else has, it's not too hard to get distribution. People need it, right? So, when you build products like Waze, or you build products like Monday.com or Mobileye or Innoviz, or companies that are changing the world, people want access, So, I'm not saying a good product's enough. You obviously do need marketing, but Israel's building some pretty remarkable things.
And then you go into the world, and I've seen it in Belgium, I've seen it in the US. It's all this. I just like don't understand this. All this hate towards Israel and the Jews, and all this call for boycott. I mean, I think if you basically boycotting Israel product, you're not living anymore. So I know firsthand about Palestinian propaganda and all those lies. I've seen them in Belgium, and that's also the reason why we moved to the US. But what kind of psychological principle can explain such an attitude where the entire world using the technology, and in the meantime is willing to boycott the country that is producing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just one item on a very, very long list of items of the hypocrisy surrounding Israel and the Jews, right? I mean, there are so many. And yeah, you don't know whether to laugh or cry, right? When BDS is using a website powered by Wix, it's like, do you realize who's powering your website? So, it's a funny thing, but like you said, it's basically impossible to live in the modern world and not use Israeli technology. I mean, when you unlock your iPhone, that's Israeli technology. When you take a picture with your camera phone, that's Israeli technology. When the list is endless. You use any computer, it's the chip is built in Israel. I mean, so it's pretty much impossible to live in the modern world and use modern technology without using Israeli products.
Correct. And we're going to get to obviously October 7 in a minute. But before that, there was already a call for boycott. You mentioned BDS, boycott, divestment, sanction, which, by the way, has always struck me that many people, including many Jewish people, don't even know about that. So before October 7 already, there's a lot of calls for boycotts. How do Israeli people cope with that? Or is it like the Israeli chutzpah, you know what, I don't care, they will come to their terms and understand who we are and that we want peace and we want to help people? Or how do you cope with that? And especially you as a global speaker, when you go and travel the world and speak at those different conferences?
Yeah, I don't think it's even on anyone's mind in Israel. No one cares. I mean, like you said, you can't boycott Israeli tech. You just can't. It's not possible. You want to boycott Israeli products? Like, you can't water your garden with drip irrigation. That was the myth. You can't eat cherry tomatoes invented here. Like, it's just a ridiculous thing. So people can talk till they're blue in the face about boycotting Israel, but no one here even like lets it, penetrate their brain. It's just not even on the agenda. No one cares. No one takes it seriously. We just continue to innovate and make it, more and more difficult to boycott.
Yeah, and I remember being in Belgium, hearing all those lies, and maybe you can. And I know you and I speak the same language, but for people that are listening and then might not be aware of all those lies about Israeli occupation, genocide, blockade of Gaza, apartheid, can you please tell the people listening what is the reality and how crazy those lies are?
It's literally comical. It's a joke, and you don't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, genocide, really? Because the Palestinian people have grown 600% since Israel was established. Like, what kind of genocide is that, right? Apartheid. We have Arabs in our Knesset, in our parliament. Arabs are Supreme Court justices in Israel. What kind of apartheid? Do you even know what apartheid means? Like, it's insulting to real apartheid, right? I mean, Israel's indiscriminately killing people in Gaza. Really? If Israel was indiscriminately killing people in Gaza, we would have flattened Gaza and we wouldn't have lost tens of soldiers already. The fact that we're sending soldiers in is in order to avoid or to minimize civilian deaths, while Hamas does everything to maximize civilian deaths. So, like, these false narratives of Israel being this oppressor, the whole thing's one big fabrication. We didn't occupy any Arab-Palestinian state because an Arab-Palestinian state never existed in the history of the world. Okay, if anybody thinks that there was an Arab-Palestinian state, then please have them tell me who the prime minister was or what the national anthem was, because it never existed. And so, like, even if you want to go with that lie of the occupation, then that's why they're, perpetrating terror and murdering Jews. That's why, because before the state was even established, before any occupation, Arabs were massacring Jews in Hebron in 1929. So what was the excuse back then? So these are all false narratives, and it's every generation anti-Semitism takes on a new face and a new mask. And this generation, the mask of anti-Semitism is quote unquote anti-Zionism. And the whole, I'm not anti-Semitic. I love Jews. I just am against Zionism. Do you understand what a ridiculous statement that is? I don't hate Jews. I just don't think they have a right to exist in a homeland. I don't hate Jews. I just want them to go back to Europe where they were massacred by the millions. And I don't think they deserve a state, even though there are 22 Arab states. The Jews can't have one state. If that's not anti-Semitic, then what is? So all these narratives of Israel being the oppressor and killing Palestinians, Israel killed 20,000, Palestinian children in Gaza. Really? Where'd you get those numbers from? Whoever thinks that has to realize they're taking numbers from Hamas, an actual terrorist organization, because that's the only source of information that they have that is in any way implying that Israel is killing tens of thousands of children. In fact, if you're going to listen to Hamas, go right ahead, but just tell me one thing. How many terrorists did Israel kill? Because according to Hamas numbers, the answer is zero, because they don't differentiate between anybody, right? Everybody is innocent in Gaza. Give me a break. The whole thing's ridiculous. And the fact that there are intelligent and moral people who believe this crap is just mind-boggling. And it just leads me to the conclusion that hatred, specifically the oldest hatred in the world, the hatred of Jews, just blinds people. It just, I don't know, it makes them crazy in some way or something. It's like a reality distortion field, like they say about Steve Jobs. They just can't see reality. And you could show them facts till you're blue in the face. They don't believe facts. They don't care about truth. They just want to hate Jews. And they found a nice way to hitch a ride and call it anti-Zionism and let their anti-Semitism, come to the surface. And that's what we're seeing now. And it's extremely sad, extremely tragic, but not surprising to anyone.
Yeah. And by the way, Zionism, and I'm a Zionist just like you, it's basically the self-determination of the Jewish people. And how could that be bad?
Yeah, it's a very simple thing. I wrote this morning on Twitter. I said, here, it's a very simple thing. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist? If the answer is yes, then welcome to the club because you are a Zionist. And if you do not think Israel has a right to exist, welcome to the club. You are an anti-Semite. That's it.
Yep.
In the Zionist club, there are some amazing people. In the anti-Semite club, you have people like Hitler. And you have people like the supreme leader of Iran. And you have people like, the head of Hamas. Okay, no problem. If you want to be part of that club, go right ahead.
The other thing that struck me is when I see people demonstrating in the streets or in the campuses. And for me, there are two categories of people. One are the Nazi Islamists, and the second one are the useful idiots of the Nazi Islamists. And when I hear somebody say, yeah, the occupation of Gaza, Israel left 2005. There's not one Jew left in Gaza.
Yeah, it's actually, most people don't know this, but it's not only that we evacuated 10,000 people from Gaza forcefully, basically, in a move that one might say was actually undemocratic, but that's a topic for another time. Not only did we remove 10,000 people, we dug up our graves. We removed dead Jews from Gaza because we knew what Hamas would do if we left them there. And now we obviously see that we were right. But what kind of occupation of Gaza? There was not one Jew dead or alive in Gaza. 2005, Israel left. 2006, they elected Hamas. Again, just a blatant historical fabrication that the world adopts and buys as if it's the truth. And you could show them that it's a lie. They're just not interested because it's a nice excuse to hate Jews.
Yeah. And coupled with that, what I'm also completely baffled is the fact that all those Arab countries speaks in defense, between brackets, of the Palestinian people, but none want to accept even one refugee, which is insane.
It's the list is so long. It's so long of just the hypocrisy. They talk about a blockade on Gaza. We should send in humanitarian aid. Do people know how to read a map? Because they have a border with Egypt, their Muslim brothers who won't let them in, who won't give them anything. And we, Israel, who's at war with Gaza, that elected Hamas, and 80% of innocent Gazans support Hamas, we should send them water for them to use the water pipes and shoot at us. We should give them electricity to spread propaganda on the internet. It's ludicrous. But again, it's just one more lie that the world just loves to spread.
Yeah. And over 10 years ago, I remember speaking with some friends, the non-Jewish, and telling them, do you know that the Palestinian Authority is actually incentivizing their people to kill Jews? that every time they do that, there is a monthly pension, which is paid by the Palestinian Authority, and which is, by the way, funded by the European Union and the US and the taxpayer dollar. And I remember at that time, people say, oh, you're nuts, you're crazy, you're exaggerating. And now it's like a given. Now, you know firsthand, you suffer firsthand from that. Your brother, Ari, was assassinated by one of those people in September 2018, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I don't know if assassinated is the right word. He was murdered. Yeah, I don't know if assassinated. It was a 16-year-old Palestinian kid. It wasn't like so sophisticated. He just, took a knife and was looking for an innocent Jew to kill and stabbed him in his artery in his neck and killed him. So I would call it murdered not less assassinated.
Yeah, you're right. That's and again, I'm not English native, so forgive me for not using the right term. But and then the family of this murderer is getting paid every month. That's the insanity.
And not only that, by the way, Ari, as you know, ran after the terrorist after he stabbed him and he shot him just inches, centimeters away from his next victim, who, by the way, has since become part of the family because Ari saved her in his last breath. Ari's become, a national hero of the state of Israel. But, this terrorist is in Israeli jail right now, getting a degree, getting an academic degree, getting fed 3 times a day, living comfortably, probably more comfortably than he would have been living at home. And he wasn't like one of these oppressed, poor Palestinians. He lived a totally affluent life. But you could be sure that in Israeli jails, he's living an even better life. So the whole thing, again, insanity, pure insanity.
And so when I hear people saying, oh, yeah, we should have the PA of Mahmoud Abbas taking over Gaza. I mean, Abbas has been inciting this hate for decades. He's a KGB agent trained like Arafat was. He wrote a thesis negating the Holocaust. He's been training his kids in hate. The Palestinian textbooks are full of hate. And by the way, again, sponsored by the EU. When does this insanity could stop and what could be a solution?
So that's where my observant Judaism comes in, because I look at the situation, this war specifically, through a human natural lens. I will lose my mind because, again, it's like when people tell you all day long that you're crazy, you start believing it. So if I would look at this situation and say, wait, the whole world believes these things, maybe I'm the one that's wrong, then I would lose my mind. So I have to look at everything that's happening through a divine lens, through a godly lens. And it's very, very clear. I don't know why, but it's very clear that God is pulling the strings here. And I'm reminded of many of our stories throughout the Old Testament, throughout the Torah, whether it's God hardening the heart of Pharaoh, in order for God to help our nation leave ancient Egypt. Again, it seems like God is hardening the hearts of the world right now. Why? I don't know, why God does what he does, but there's no way that you can logically explain any of these events from October 7th, to the world not standing with Israel. Literally, there's nothing about this war that makes sense. Nothing. And so I put my hands up and I'm like, I can't understand any of this. God, for whatever reason, is doing this. I don't know why.
You cannot understand. I cannot understand. Nobody can understand. And since October 7th, and once again, you're the reference in the tech world. You're a global speaker. You're consulting for many companies. But since October 7th, you said, okay, I'm going to pause that. And I'm going to use my network. I'm going to use my knowledge to speak for Israel and to inform people. So what are some of the rational, not rational, but what are the, how did it come to you? And what have you done since October 7th?
Yeah, so it wasn't like I made a conscious decision, to focus on Israel advocacy. I just sprung into action. I guess I'm channeling Ari, but I've been working on Israel advocacy since October 7th, 24 hours a day, basically. I mean, the traction the numbers are insane. I mean, I'm on Twitter alone, I've reached 250 million impressions. Other platforms, tens of millions, and it very much feels to me like it's having a real impact. I mean, I'm having I'm getting thousands of messages from people saying, I simply did not know, what Zionism was. And you just, educated me. Now, there are people who are not really listening and who, just whose hearts are full of hate, and there's nothing you can do about that. But there are millions of people out there who, are, people of integrity and are willing to hear and are willing to listen and are willing to admit when they're wrong. They just need the information. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to provide that information as accurately and as, quickly, as real time as possible. And also focusing on spreading positivity because, this country, this nation is, devastated. And so we all need something to grasp onto.
When you learned on October 7th, how did you learn it, and what happened, and what was the reaction that day?
Right. So October 7th came out on a holiday of Simchat Torah, one of the happiest days on the Jewish calendar, where we are in synagogue and we dance with Torah scrolls. And we were doing exactly that. We were in synagogue dancing with Torah scrolls. And, then all of a sudden we heard a scream, a very chilling scream, that there's a siren. So we all ran to the bomb shelter. The truth is, a couple of minutes before that, I was walking to synagogue with my 12-year-old twins, and we heard booms above our head. And I was like, what is that? I don't know, because we know what the Iron Dome is and we know what these rockets are, but there was nothing had happened. You know what I mean? So, when a couple of minutes later, the siren started to go off, we understood that there's something going on. We went to the bomb shelter, we went back to prayer. We went to the bomb shelter, we went back to prayer. And then the rumors started to circulate. You have to remember, as observant Jews, we don't use our phones on holidays. And so we didn't have any confirmation of what's going on, but we knew something was going on. And then when the 18-year-olds in the community started to be called up to the army, then we knew something big was up. But I didn't find out the details until when I turned on my phone after the holiday, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, I remember, obviously, learning about it, hearing about it. I even have some issues, even still talking about it today. What was insane, and all the insanity to me, was the lack of reaction afterwards. We Jews are always there to support any minorities, whether it be the LGBTQ, the women, Black community, Asian community. We are always there to try to improve the world, and we found ourselves very much alone.
Yeah, but again, on the one hand, I too was, hoping that at least now the world will side with us. But you got to be a little more thorough and look at history books and look at our history. Same script over and over again. This should not come as a surprise to anyone. It's the same script. There's an empire, whether it's the Roman Empire, the Nazi Empire, the Greek Empire, the Egyptian Empire, whatever it is, where Jews are an integral part of society, and the empire gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And as they get, strong to a point where their success goes to their head, morality goes out the window. They, the Colosseum and putting people to fight to death, and Nazis, and just no morality. And then, they try to kill the messengers who brought the Torah to the world, right? Because where does the world know of, the fact that it's immoral to murder or to rape? Or where did democracy come from? The Torah, right? And I don't need to debate that with anyone. Just do open some books, Google it. And so when morality goes out the window, the world wants to get rid of the messenger. And then the Jews say, no, come on, we're just like you. Let's assimilate. We're just like you. In fact, we're going to outdo you. We're going to out-liberal the most liberal people in America. We're going to be more liberal. We're going to out-Greek the Greeks, out-Roman the Romans. And, we think we can trick them. But they remind us time and time again, using a tool called anti-Semitism, that we are not just like them. And, when that happens, well, we know the next stage in that script, and it's not a pretty one. Thankfully, unfortunately, today it's a little bit different, because Jews can get on a plane and come to Israel where they're protected. But anybody who thinks, that the Holocaust could never happen again is not paying attention.
Yeah, it always reminds me of the story of the German families were Jewish. Before World War II, they were wearing the cross that they had received defending Germany in World War I, thinking that it was going to protect them, which obviously it didn't. Now you're a tech guy. You're used to do analysis or looking at audiences. What's your take on TikTok? What's your take on the younger generation that are basically learning, between bracket, because they're not being intoxicated by that, but they're learning about the history, they're learning about Israel through those lenses, and have, for the youngest, a majority of them are having completely false picture of what's going on.
Yeah, it's a terrifying reality. Someone posted on Twitter a few hours ago, and it's going very viral right now as we speak. She wrote, "Goodbye, Gen Z. From now on, I'm going to call you Gen H, Hamas," right? These people are so lost. It's devastating to watch, but who's to blame? I think the adults are to blame, not the kids. And we see what's going on in campuses. We see what's going on with presidents of the most elite campuses and universities in the United States of America, not willing to denounce genocide, the calls for genocide. How morally bankrupt can you be? Do you have any red lines? And so we can't blame the youth. They're being indoctrinated. But the reality is, it's a very, very scary situation that these people who are announcing their support for bin Laden and 9/11 are
Mhm.
going to lead the world. They're going to lead America. They're going to lead other empire, in the next 10 years. So it's a very, very scary situation and reality that I don't actually want to think about. I can't even imagine what America's going to look like in 10 years from now. I don't want to imagine. It's a terrifying thought.
Well, I wrote a book to my daughters to explain why we left Europe. And that's one of the things that I describe is getting into the university and tapping into young people, because 10, 20 years later, they are the leaders, they're the journalists, everything. But it's more than that now. It's exposed that Qatar money and Arab money have been basically buying what was called, because I cannot call them elite place of higher education anymore, but they've been bought. And when you look at, for instance, Northwestern, which is the place where all the top journalists are being educated in America, that have received $600 million from those countries, that now the future journalists of America are going to be trained by journalists of Al Jazeera from Qatar. I mean, this is insane. Now, what can be done? Because we cannot just stay and watch it in silence. What can be done about that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're never going to win a numbers game ever, because they outnumber us, 1,000,000 to 1. So, there's no point in even trying to win that. But, obviously, I believe that truth will prevail, and I believe that justice, and sticking to the right side of history at the end of the day will win. I think, this war, unlike maybe any other war in modern history since World War II, has really separated the world into good and evil. I mean, if you stand with Hamas after what they did on October 7th, I mean, I don't need to tell you what they did. If you stand with Hamas, you are on the side of evil, and you are therefore evil. And if you side with Israel, and by the way, you could side with Israel and you can criticize Israel by all means, then you're choosing the right side of history. And so, I don't know that there's anything to be done other than sticking to the truth, other than continuing to try to eliminate evil from this world, other than to fight, what Hamas stands for, which is not necessarily just Hamas. It's not about, they want a Palestinian state. Forget that garbage. They don't want a Palestinian state. They want dead Jews. And it's not just dead Jews. They want dead Westerners. So it's radical Islam that needs to be battled, and Hamas is just the front line right now. But, this is a clash of civilizations. It's Western world versus radical Islam. And unfortunately, the Western world, we kid ourselves that we can apply our values to radical Islam. It's like, if I treat someone well with dignity, they're going to treat me well. So let's treat the Palestinians, let's treat Gaza, it doesn't work like that. That's not how they think. Radical Islam does not care how you treat them. You are an infidel, and therefore you deserve to die. And that is not something they're willing to compromise on, no matter how nicely you treat them. But the Western world can't grasp that. It's like, how could that be? Well, that's something we need to wake up to. That is the reality. And so until we understand that this is a clash of civilizations, how could you win a war when you don't even realize who your enemy is?
Totally. And it's fascinating to me, negotiating, for instance, trying to find a compromise in their culture is seen as a sign of weakness. And we start repeating it. Now, you said something very important. Yes, you can criticize the state of Israel, but there is Natan Sharansky that came with those 3Ds to make the difference between the critic of Israel and anti-Semitism. And it's, and forgive me if I'm mistaken, but it's delegitimization, it's demonization, and is applying double standard. If you do one of those three, you are an anti-Semite. You're not criticizing Israel.
In other words, you could say, I don't like the government policy or the government decision, but to say Israel doesn't have a right to exist is just pure anti-Semitism. Like, if you think that the Jewish people who are indigenous to this land for thousands of years don't deserve to come home, especially after everything we've been through, then you just hate Jews. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
And one thing is also fascinating to me, Hillel, is the situation today where, on one hand, we've never been in the history of mankind discovering so many things that can improve lives, that can improve medicine, that can improve longevity, the earth, agriculture, climate, everything. And on the other hand, we have those people that just want to destroy and evil. Absolutely. Now, when you look at AI, and I know in the States, for instance, things like Canary Mission or the Clarion Project, who are using technology to, on one hand, monitor all those haters, and you can basically, before hiring someone, check if they're not a hater, or on the other hand, try to understand and prevent some of those bad things going on. What do you see in the tech world or with AI that could help prevent those things, or at least for the good guys there that they can be using before hiring people that are supporting evil?
AI, it's kind of like it's a funny thing because we like to talk about AI as if AI is its own sector, but AI is in everything, right? I mean, my phone has AI built into it. I mean, it's everywhere. So I don't know that AI is its own category, but I think AI is a big component in all of the technology that we're using today to detect fake accounts and bots. And there are 1,000 different things happening today in this war that Israel is using in terms of technology to win this war. Whether it's facial recognition in the tunnels, whether it's technology that detects fraud over crypto, that people are transferring, Iran is transferring money to Hamas over crypto, and Israeli companies are detecting that and seizing that those funds. There's a ton going on, and tech is playing a more significant role in this war than any war before. And I think it's weird to say, but it's pretty exciting to watch. Obviously, the war is not exciting, but to see the amount of technology, the drone technology, all of it, I think it's significant. Let's call it, evolution in terms of the way wars are conducted. And this is not your traditional war. There's no two armies here. There's an army and there's a savage, barbaric terrorist group that does not care about wars against crimes against humanity, or they just, they act literally like animals, whether it's hiding behind innocent women or children. I mean, this is sick stuff. I mean, there's, tunnels being discovered under beds and weapons being discovered in baby incubators. It's crazy stuff. You can't even make this stuff up. So, it's a challenge that I don't know that any other country had to deal with. And Israel's doing our best. And, the world can say whatever they want. The reality is that Israel is going to extraordinary lengths to minimize civilian deaths on both ends. And so, whether the world can accept that or not, it doesn't change the reality. That is the reality.
Absolutely. And I think that if you listen to any expert, whether it's Colonel Kemp, who was in the British Army, or even general in America, they are saying it. They are saying that Israel is going to length that none of other country, including the US or the UK, would do. And as a reminder, when it was time to go and take on Japan, and the civilians, unfortunately, a lot of them were killed, but it was not nobody was demonstrating against that at that time. And the same when the Allies went to take on Nazi Germany, there's unfortunately a lot of civilians that die, but nobody was demonstrating to protect the civilian at that time, unless if it's the Jews, right?
Hypocrisy. That's the hypocrisy. Listen, just on this podcast alone, I think we've made a list of like 5 or 7 things that, again, it's endless. The hypocrisy is endless. I mean, there's so many paradoxes built into the anti-Israel narrative. It's like, on the one hand, the Palestinians are a people who deserve a state. On the other hand, the fact that they say they want to kill every Jew around the world, let's not believe them. They shouldn't be held accountable for their words, or the fact that they elected Hamas, or the fact that they celebrate in the streets and give out candies when innocent people are murdered. They don't mean it. Let's not listen to them. But on the other hand, they deserve a state. Are they adults? Or are they little children? You can't have it both ways, right? Is Israel such a strong and mighty army that we're committing genocide? Or is Israel, not flattening Gaza? If we're so strong and we want to commit genocide, why are we not flattening Gaza? These things are just built-in contradictions and paradoxes, and the world just keeps going and spreading these lies. It's ridiculous.
And one thing I'm also amazingly impressed by Israel is this not only love for life that Jews have that in them, but in Israel is the resilience with all the history, all the attack, the terrorist attack, the war. I saw images this week again of 2 soldiers getting married with all the soldiers supporting them, and this love of life. When you see that, and I would like to have some of your advice, especially for people in America that are suffering from microaggression or being misgendered. I mean, again, I respect everyone, but seriously, that's the type of problems you have in your life?
So I think it's if we I don't know if we want to go there, but what's one of the claims that people make when they say, call me by my pronoun? They say, what do you care? Why does it hurt you to call me by my pronoun? I am a dog. Call me dog. Call me cat. Call me parrot. What do you care? The answer is, when you do that, what you do is you tell people, forget what you see in front of your eyes. Forget reality. Forget truth. Forget critical thinking. All of it doesn't matter. And you're right. When it's calling someone a pronoun, it really doesn't matter that much. But then when this kind of war breaks out and America has forgotten what critical thinking is, well, now we could just say whatever lies we want because who cares? Facts don't matter. Remember, this man is now a parrot. Well, if he could be a parrot, then Palestinians and Hamas could be freedom fighters. Why not, right? Because truth doesn't matter. So you're right. Calling someone by a pronoun doesn't come with a heavy price, but killing critical thinking, and preventing people from using their brains and understanding what they're seeing in front of their face comes with a heavy price.
Absolutely. One thing that I'm totally, again, I cannot understand, and let's be very straightforward. I'm a straight ally. I always support everyone. I'm very respectful of people. And then I see queers for Palestine. And people don't know. First of all, the only gay pride that you have in all the Middle East is in Tel Aviv. All the other places, homosexual would be killed. It is, if I'm not mistaken, illegal by law to be homosexual in Qatar. And when it comes to Gaza, the life expectancy of gay people would be the time that their body will be thrown from rooftop to reach the floor. And then we see those movements, queers for Palestine. I mean, it's just like somebody said, it's like chicken for Chick-fil-A or a black for KKK or Jews for Hitler. I mean, They cannot live there. They hate it. They've been killed. And nevertheless, they're defending them. It's insanity.
Listen, if I came into a producer's office with a video script for a movie of current events, they would kick me out of their office pretty quickly and say, come back with a realistic script because what you're describing is not possible. The script of our reality is completely impossible. None of it makes any sense. Like I said, the fact that like you're standing for Gaza, go stand in Gaza. Take your LGBTQ flag and go stand in Gaza and see what happens. Like it's just absolutely ludicrous. These people, like you said, they're thrown off of roofs, but once they hit the ground, they're not left there. They're tied onto a pickup truck and paraded through the streets of Gaza proudly that a homosexual was killed. Like these people, this is the forces of darkness. Mm-hmm. LGBTQ for Palestine, queers for you got to laugh. You can't help it. You just got to laugh. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so with everything that has been happening in Israel, how do Israeli manage to continue to live, to love life, to be resilient? What is there that you keep living, inventing, and producing good things for the world?
Called necessity. You don't have a choice. What's the alternative? Think about it. If the Jews didn't have resilience throughout our history, we would not be here, right? Jews were exiled from countries on average every 14 years throughout our history. 14 years. If we weren't resilient, we would never have made it this far. So we don't have a choice. This is our only country. We have to fight. There's nothing we can do about it. We didn't want this war. We didn't want any war. Israel's never attacked anyone. It's Israeli Defense Forces. We are on the defense. With our military superiority, they could do what we need to do, but we don't because we're Israel Defense Forces. So, Israel has to be resilient because we don't have any other choice.
And you see that in the demonstration in the streets everywhere and in the universities. All the pro-Israel demonstration, or you have the U.S. flag, the Israeli flag, they singing a song of peace. They're calling for peace. It's calm and moderate. And then I'm still looking for one pro-Palestinian demonstration which is not violent, which is not calling for genocide, which is not tearing down American flag on Veterans Day, which is insane. It's in front of our eyes. We just have to look.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I look at the world and I'm like, how do you not see it? It's right in front. Show me a pro-Israel rally next to a pro-Palestinian rally. Can you really not see the difference? Like truly, hatred blinds. Hatred blinds. And when when you have that much hatred in your heart for Jews, you don't see reality. That's the only possible explanation.
Hillel, I would not want to finish this conversation without asking you about your 5 children. How do you speak to them? And what is your advice for any Jew in the world now with what's going on? How do you talk to your children? What are the important things to do? How do you maintain sanity with your wife and your children?
I mean, listen, in Israel, we feel very safe, and secure knowing that the IDF is protecting us. But we were in the UK last weekend, 2 weekends ago, my whole family. And so I told my kids they cannot walk around with a kippah on their head. They put on a cap or whatever. They cannot talk Hebrew in public. They cannot, say Jewish words in public. And you're used to it as an observant Jew. you say the word rabbi or whatever it may be. And so when we were in, taxis and cabs in London, I had to tell them to be very, very careful, which is a reality that I never thought in my lifetime I would ever see. But here we are, in Nazi Germany, it took years to go from dangerous rhetoric to actual physical violence. In 2023, it took a month. Very, very sad situation, but you got to do what you got to do. And so in Israel, we're proud Jews. But when we go out of Israel, we have to be, aware and, obviously see what's going on around us and be very careful.
And to your point, my sister-in-law lives in London. They've removed their mezuzah from their house, which is insane. What do you advise us here in the diaspora to tell our children? Because I also believe that Israel needs the diaspora and the diaspora needs Israel. But what are your advice to speak to our children to basically let them continue to have their life?
I mean, I'm not sure that I agree with your.
I know you were going to say that.
But let's just go with that for 1 second. I think that we have to start telling our kids that there's this place called Israel, that we need to figure out how to put together a plan that eventually we will get on a plane and go there because that's our home. I think that, if 5-10 years ago, people could say, the US is my home, UK is my home, Paris is my home, South Africa is my home. I don't think any Jew really believes that anymore. And so it's time we, communicated with our children and let them know that there is only one place in the world that's home for Jews. I'm not saying you need to pick up right now and come here, but be prepared because it's not going to get any better.
And I know it. At that point, we would have a conversation. But as for the time being, what would you advise to tell about our children in terms of learning the history or being able to stand up, being able to speak up? You post something this morning that really resonates with me, is that it's time to speak up. But to be able to speak up, you need to know the facts.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important point. I think we should absolutely, make sure that our children and everyone really has the quote unquote ammunition, engage and to debate with people that are just simply lying. But when someone says Israel's committing genocide and you just don't know the facts, then that's a problem. So I think it's important that our children know the reality, the real facts, and not be, persuaded by propaganda.
Thank you. Hillel, you are obviously now full-time speaking up, informing everyone. You're on all the platform. Your last name is Fuld, Hillel Fuld, for people who want to follow you. In terms of work now, it's a parenthesis. So how could people get in touch with you and how could people help you business-wise as well? And let us know that.
I mean, listen, I'm very, like you said, I'm 100% focused on the war right now. So I'm not on anyone's payroll, right? This is what I'm doing because I know I need to do it. So, if there are people listening that, want to help Israel in a very significant way, in a very meaningful way, I'm going to have to figure out how to sustain this if I'm being totally transparent with you. So, anybody could reach out and contact me and, definitely am happy to help, get some support from people around the world. Because I'm not stopping this no matter what I have to do, because this is what I need to be doing right now.
And how do they get in touch with you?
Any platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, HillelFuld.com, anywhere, the internet.
Awesome. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, for being so straightforward. And more importantly, thank you for everything you're doing. You're one of the few people I'm reposting everything because you're really helping, you're really informing people. I wish you all the best for you, for your family, for Israel, and I hope to meet you face to face one day.
Amen. Thank you for having me.
Hillel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I know you have a very busy agenda, and more importantly, thank you for everything you're writing and posting and for speaking up for Israel and the Jews worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please do so on LinkedIn. And if you learn anything in this conversation, please share it with your network. Thank you.